Ready?
In 27. Welcome to another edition of Rock and Recovery. I'm your host, Jay. Today I've got a special guest. His name is Sean. I don't even want to try to butcher his last name. So everybody, Sean's got something to say to us. So let's tune in and listen. Sean, take it us.
How you doing, big guy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Just living the life, I guess.
You know, sometimes that's all we can do is just live the life, you know?
Yeah. So I deal with a lot of addicts. I've been dealing with addicts for 40 years. I myself have been on Percocet for 40 years. And luckily for me, I'm able to control it and function well. I guess because I never liked the feeling of getting high, but it doesn't work that way for many people. In fact, chemical dependency with pills or with alcohol is your toughest addiction besides a physical. You also have a psychological effect. I have seen many overdoses running several homeless shelters. I actually moved into the shelter and lived there for 15 years because we had so many people. And the city, the press, they used to say, why don't you throw them out when they get high? It's ridiculous. And I know a lot of people believe in rock bottom. It works for a lot of people. I believe in a cushioned rock bottom where you just don't let them die. You know, they can hit rock, but you catch them from that last stage. And I'm sure you've heard this, that drugs and alcohol leads to three places: jails, institutions, and death.
I have heard that.
You know, once they shut that coffin, there's nothing you can do to bring yourself back. And eventually will happen. I mean, I slept with a monitor on me for many years. I would check my pulse to make sure my pulse wasn't low before I went to bed because I had some education in the field. And I didn't get high, but I still took care of myself where I didn't get in that danger zone. And it's so important for families. You know, some people just don't want to get better. And I'm a strong believer, man, that you stick with them no matter what. You give them as many times as necessary. And if you're relapsed and don't have the what the fuck attitude, I already relapsed, might as well get high. Now stop what you're doing, and right then and there, go to a meeting, grab somebody, call somebody that you know, and don't continue because it only gets worse. And for those that are struggling, you know, addiction, when it comes to pills, for instance, it's hard because it's like having COVID and someone gives you the magic bullet and says, hey, take this pill and you'll be better in 1 minute. And that's where we have our fentanyl people on the street and our people who are addicted. They have to use, and people don't understand that. Families need to understand that they're sick, and their cure is to take another pill when it's not really a cure. It just masks the next day. So what were you on? You were on drugs apparently, right? What were you on?
I was addicted to methamphetamine, and I was in and out of prison for almost 20 years. I was addicted probably close to 30 years, and I was an IV user. So, I mean, it was hard to control at times. I would put off all relations. I lost so many relationships that, you know, it's crazy. I lost relationships with family, and I tried to distance myself, honestly, because I didn't want anybody knowing how I was. You know, I didn't need anybody seeing me as an addict. You know, that's not the person I wanted to be. I wasn't proud of it. So I would like ghost people. I was good at ghosting, you know, so.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that. And, you know, I guess the hardest thing we see is kids today. And that's what scares the shit out of me. It took us years to have them approve Narcan, you know, and then you have fentanyl kits. Some states allow it, some states don't, where you should be able to test the product. Like they're putting fentanyl marijuana these days.
Yeah.
And some states don't even allow you to test it, which is utterly ridiculous. They figure you're just assisting and enabling the drug addict, but no, test. You have to be cautious out there, and harm reduction. I love those programs, even though it doesn't help them get clean, but in a way it does, because if you're using harm reduction programs like in California where they hand out needles and stuff like that, if you have caseworkers in there, you can get clean. You just tell them you want to get clean, and they'll refer you to a place. On the street and getting clean, good luck. I'm not much a fan of Bobby Kennedy, but I'll say that he wants to come out with a program where we actually try to treat them on the street, so they realize that once they get clean for that 1 or 2 days by maybe the Subox or whatever, we may be able to get them cleaner that way. And I've been a fan of that for years. We've been trying to institute that for over 10 years. So addiction's hard. You can't.
I had one person come on the show and tell me he was from the northwest coast up there, Portland and Seattle and Washington area, that told me the addicts we should house and feed and home and just supply everything for the addicts and all the taxpayers' expense just to get them off the street. And I'm like, that's great, but then it gives them no incentive to actually want to quit.
Yeah, there's two philosophies to that. And at the rock bottom approach works for a lot of people. But if you want to get them clean, in my opinion, you got to make it easier for them. So, yeah, that is a philosophy that people use. Put them in a place. It's harm reduction, of course. It ends up being cheaper for the taxpayers, cheaper for the government and the politicians, a lot cheaper. But that shouldn't be a reason we do it. Whatever we do should be based on morality. And whatever works for that person. You can't have a standardized program for everybody. You have to have different things. Housing first, where they give them a house, and then they can be whoever they are. But if you get them in a place and you give them everything that they need, and you have follow-up services, and you have people going there, it's very successful if you can get people there, other addicts to come in, other homeless people to come in and talk to them, and just giving that first step where they can become a little bit clean. It's so important to communicate, man. There's no shame in saying, look, I'm an addict. I need help. And for families, don't give up. You can't give up. People get addicted to pills because they get in a car accident and their life is destroyed.
I know a lot of people that their plug, their pusher is their doctor,
We used to call them pill partying physicians or drug dealing doctors.
Yes. Yeah.
And we advocated against these pain clinics for years, except now the government has went a little too far, where people that are really suffering in pain have a hard time getting a little bit of a pain pill or something light and minute to keep the pain away from it. It sucks to be in pain. But
if there's different remedies, you think they should be open, like all pathways? I'm a believer in any pathway that will get you clean and sober. I don't care if it's harm reduction, Matt. I don't care what the way to get sober is. As long as it works for you, then it works. And there's nobody that should be able to judge you on your path to recovery. Because right. I'll be honest, nobody's going to walk the same way that you walk in your shoes, plain and simple.
I'm not a big fan of that AA, but let me tell you something. I have seen people that I tried to help over and over, and I had no luck, use NA and AA, and they have been very successful and clean 20, 30 years later. So it does work. Absolutely. But I'm just not a fan of everything they do. Doesn't mean they're not good. And again, different folks, different strokes. And
I think okay, so I'm kind of biased on NA and AA also. I do Celebrate Recovery, but if you talk to a lot of old comers, that were in the NA and AA rooms, that's the only program that they had. It's either do it cold turkey or go to a meeting. And when I say meeting, that's AA or NA. So a lot of times you'll see these older people in recovery, 20, 25, 20 plus years in recovery. And that was the only way that was available then, though. Now there's so many different, there's the sober method, the Sinclair method, there's the Phoenix. There's so many different pathways to recovery that if you don't like one, find another, because there's enough out there that's going to fit just exactly the way you want to be.
You
I
never,
mean,
never give up.
that's right. That's the whole theme, is never get up. If you hold on long enough, hope, the acrostic for hope, hold on, pain ends. And I truly believe that if people just stay another day and keep on staying another day, that eventually you will find, I'll be honest, there's going to be one of two things. You're going to quit one of two ways. Either just depends on what side of the ground you're going to be on.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
So how does the homelessness and the homeless epidemic that we are facing, how much do you think that has to do with not only mental health, but addiction also?
well, it's a couple ways to look at it, and all the statistics are absolutely manipulated. You can make it swing any way you want. People out there say, "Oh, 95% of them are drunks and drug addicts." No, but if they stay on the street long enough, they're going to become an addict, because it's a very, very hard life to live. So allowing them to sit there and just be homeless and homeless and homeless, be chronic, is ridiculous. Like I said, they'll end up dead or whatever, or addicted. I would say probably 45% to 60%, in my opinion, use drugs or alcohol. It doesn't mean they can't function, and it doesn't mean they can't stop, because they do get depressed, and they will use substances because they're depressed. So it doesn't really qualify them for addict. I would say people that are like so addicted, like what you see in, I believe it's Philadelphia on that street. I forgot what it's called. Kensington. I saw that and I cried. It was sad. I reached out. I'm like, hey, let's put doctors, nurse practitioners out there. Let's do what they're going to do. No one listened, but I think they just started last year, where they're putting EMTs and paramedics out there with nurses, where they can actually give them the substance to not use the fentanyl, an opiate, the Suboxone or whatever you want to use. Yeah. It's
See, for me, the last time I got out of prison, which was the last time I got out of prison, not say I went to county jail shortly after that for a little bit, but I got out of prison the last time. They dropped me off in downtown Denver. That's where I'm from, is Colorado. They gave me my $100 bus pass or my $100 gate pass and a bus ticket to Denver, Colorado. I get off the bus in Union Station down there in Denver, and it's all homeless and addicts. And what do? Being the addict that I am, I find the first person that's selling my DOC, and I'm like, yeah, I got $100, but what do you got? And I got what I wanted, but then to walk around, see, I was more of, I don't want to go to sleep type person, but then to walk around the area and see the homeless and just I call them, they're zombies. They are literal, the fentanyl zombies, the whatever you want to call them, but that's really what it looked like. It looked like an apocalyptic world where, and the police and everybody was okay with how everybody was acting. And I still couldn't wrap that around in my head. I couldn't think about that. I couldn't understand why I'm seeing people smoke the stuff, shoot the stuff, snort the stuff, and sell the stuff, all in the freaking Four Corners area of Denver, or the triangle there. And it's crazy because the police weren't doing nothing. The people with kids walking by weren't saying nothing. There's cops all over the place. They know what's going on, but they were allowing it. I'm like,
same thing that happens.
I'm like,
over there. It's really,
what's the point of this? It really was mind blowing, because the people I would get it from, open dealing. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I've never been in such a place because I also sold the shit to friggin' keep my habit. So I just couldn't believe. And let's meet over here. I'll leave it over there, and super secret type stuff. And here are all these people doing it out in the open. And I couldn't understand how they weren't going to jail or going to prison or getting busted, because honestly, they didn't care.
Yeah, that's the way Philadelphia is over there too. It is utterly amazing that we've let that area. I wanted to work there for a couple of weeks. I still may. I just had brain surgery a couple months ago, but I'm going to probably work that street see how they do it and see what goes on, because something needs to be done. It's horribly disgusting to see people just walk by them and do absolutely nothing. And you know what? We've gotten so used to making like detox centers be like hospitals. They don't need to be like hospitals. Give somebody a fucking mat, put a nurse practitioner there to handle their vitals, treat them for dehydration when they vomit, treat their diarrhea. It doesn't have to be a freaking hospital room. And it becomes so expensive when we institutionalize and make a business out of it, when we can do it. We could put centers all over the place, 50 beds on the floor and a mat if you have to, free, no cost. Just come in, put a couple, like I say, nurses and a couple orderlies there.
Yeah,
and get people clean by just using our fucking head, but it doesn't happen. Everybody wants to call the rehabs or centers will say, no, that doesn't work. What are you, nuts? Because we're taking money out of their pockets if we do that.
Yep.
That's out of rehab centers. It's fine.
I live here in Florida now, and I live on the west coast of Florida. This was after years, always being a resident of Colorado. That's where I grew up. That's where I was born, raised. There's stays in other states for a while as my parents moved around, but whatever. Colorado's my home and always been my home, but I don't even really want to go back there, not even to visit. I just remember the bad things that Colorado has gotten me. And when I moved to Florida, it's like no reason at all for me to go back to Colorado. None. And now I've got a whole different support system down here, and they're all sober people, the believers in Jesus Christ. I mean, New Beginnings, that's their homeless shelter that I help sometimes. I do outreach with. I do outreach for CR, Celebrate Recovery, down there in Claremont, Florida here. And it's just crazy that, Florida had some of the coldest temperatures in recorded history since they've been keeping records here in Florida this year. And the amount of people that had to find emergency shelter was crazy. It was almost unmanageable. But for some reason,
emergency shelter up there with Grady Sheriff Chad over there.
Yeah.
People in shelters, if they're homeless, if they didn't have ID, they were sleeping in the cold. And I mean, Florida.
What do you think needs to be done about that?
Well, you got mental illness, first of all.
Right.
And until you get them, some of the people on the street need a deck shot real quick. Hell no. And they will get completely realistic in a few days. Once you get them realistic, you can convince them to get off the street, get off the drugs. But until we treat them on the street to get them help, it ain't going to be done. It's going to end like Kingston over there in Philly. I mean, the way it's going right now with everything being expensive, cost, insurance not being good, hospitals throwing people out to the street all the time. Florida has a habit of that. I mean, I go against hospitals all the time in Florida. I live in Florida myself, actually. Although I frequent in Colfax Avenue a lot, Colorado. I did out a long street.
Good old Colfax. I mean, shit. What's the main thing on Colfax is Casa Bonita or Casa Grande? Yeah, Casa Bonita. Yeah, that's Colfax and Watts. That's good old downtown Denver, basically. I was raised there. I grew up in Boulder, and now I live in a little bit north of Claremont in Sumter County. So I've seen both ends, and I wouldn't trade the end that I have now. Of course, being sober and being clean and being able to do it with a clear head means so much more to me now than it did back then, because now I get to enjoy things. I get to enjoy people. I like some people even. Most time I was hiding from myself because I'll be honest, addiction is a side effect of whatever you're going through. And yeah, that's my feelings on it, is addiction is just a side effect of whatever you're going through, whatever you're having to cope with, whatever you're having to deal with. Yeah. Whatever you're having to live with, addiction is a side effect.
Yeah. The root cause of the mental illness, for instance, that keeps people on the street. If people are hearing voices, I would use drugs. If I heard voices. I mean, I get it, but people judge, and it's just so wrong. People are, I mean, Jesus makes it plain as day. You help people. And if you can't use that you can't go to church on Sunday and forget about them the rest of the week. You need to help them all the time, no matter how it is.
And I think there needs to be, maybe even, vacant land, buildings that are going to be condemned anyway, could be easily turned into shelters. I mean, they're just sitting there anyway. It's not making the property owner or anybody else any richer or any poorer by being there. But if there are subsidies out there that would allow people to, even a tax break or whatever, to on some of these abandoned places that are just sitting there, turn them into camps or shelters.
Well,
yeah, they would have to be some kind of somebody looking over that and making sure it's the right way, because I'll be honest with you, some of the worst places in the world are shelters.
Oh yeah, I ran some.
For abuse, for the SA factor, for the abuse, for parents with kids. I mean, or single dads with kids, single moms with kids, couples with kids. You're almost not going to find anything available that's safe, for everybody else.
Yeah, I always have a problem. I try to not put families in shelters, even when I do outreach on the street, because chances of the kids get taken away are very, very easy that way. Yeah, shelters have some of the worst worlds, and we were very liberal because we took everybody, and we didn't make it like a prison. So we took a lot of flack from the city. I had to spend $500,000 with the legal fees because of NIMBY. Then they wanted us gone. So, we were zoned correctly, but they said we weren't. We won the court case, of course, but, and sometimes you find politicians, even like when veterans, oh, we want to help them, but not in my backyard. Put them far fucking away from our neighborhood.
Right.
And I understand it. You want your neighborhood to be safe, but, usually the people that hurt people in the community are people that have homes. The homeless commit small crimes.
So how do you think, do you know the statistics on veterans that have become homeless and are on the street and addicts? Do you know the statistics on that?
Again, statistics are played with so much. Like, for instance, Hud used to say when they counted the homeless, for every homeless person we find on the street times 3. And that's how they used to get high figures. And they wanted to show that their funding was working. So they cut it down. You only can find one. It's one person. So forget about the people in encampments or wherever by the ocean or couch surfing. Veterans are homeless, but a lot of them want to stay by themselves.
Absolutely.
If they were in combat, actually in combat, a lot of them stay by themselves.
And I know that feeling, being in prison for as long as I did. I can do time by myself. I'm comfortable with being by myself. I get uncomfortable being around people sometimes, and so it's weird that you say that veterans like to be by themselves. They do. They absolutely do. Yet there's a difference between being lonely and being alone. I can be alone all day long, but that lonely feeling that creeps in, that's different. And same thing goes for addicts. I mean, most addicts can be alone a long time, but being lonely is a different feeling.
Yeah. And your combat people they're hardcore. They'll live in the middle of the woods and they do fine. A lot, some of them are addicted, some of them aren't. Most of them are alcoholics. A lot of them are, and some aren't. But I would say maybe, in my opinion, maybe if I just counted what we run into on a daily basis, I'd say maybe 7% of actual homeless are veterans. Some of the Vietnam guys, they're dying off fast. Yeah.
And I think the Vietnam people got a shit, got nothing but a crap for being in the wars that they were in, going through living the experiences they lived, to come home to people that literally hated them when they were doing nothing but what was told. that they volunteered to do, to come home to a welcome of nothing. How is that supposed to make you feel?
Yeah, and they're cutting benefits too right now, veterans,
Yeah.
and yeah, and the VA sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Again, we go back to the programs. I think every program the VA offers, you got to be clean. It is so hard to do that on the street. You got to get help. If you're addicted to alcohol, you try to detox, cut down slowly. You can't do it all at once because you will get sick and you have seizures. If you're addicted to pills, you got to make a chart. Okay, I'm going to take it this time, and this time, where it can be comfortable, where you don't get sick. And then at the same time, if you're using drugs because of an issue, then you need to get help for that issue. If it's just because you're addicted, maybe from a car accident, hell, in '84, I was on they had me on morphine. I don't know, 2 weeks straight, every 3 hours. They released me from the hospital without detoxing me. I ended up back in the hospital that day with detoxing. I had no idea what detox was. I never used drugs. I never smoked pot till I was 51. I got a pot card to see what helped with the pain. It didn't do anything for me, so I stopped smoking it. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, that was me. Person never used drugs. I got addicted to morphine from surgery, being in the hospital with no freaking detox. And I went back in for a couple of weeks, and they brought me down lower, and I was sick in just a couple hours after I got out of the hospital.
So what do you think? Explain to what NIMBY is and why do you think it'd work?
Well, NIMBY is basically not in my backyard.
Okay.
If you want to, you got to put a homeless shelter somewhere you got to be very careful where you put it. Can't be too close to community. It can't be in a rich community. Can't be in a poor community. You got to find the right spot because you will have complaints. And again, I get it. Someone doesn't want transient people always by their house because you don't know who they are. So people get very scared. They think they're going to molest their children. There ain't too many homeless sex offenders, but there's now homeless sex offenders because we treat them differently and we don't allow them to house. They should be in a house. They should be under a bridge, unmonitored if they're dangerous. That's a whole other problem. But NIMBY's hard to cure. They will, like I said, with veterans, I'll hear it all the time. Oh, I want to help the veterans. No, we don't want to put it here. Let's put it. We're not going to put it in this city. Let's put it somewhere else. Let's go over there. Go to that city. They got more homeless than us. It'll never be cured.
So where do 90% of the homeless shelters go? I mean, industrial complex areas or more business-based areas or just
well, downtown where the area is not good. Fort Lauderdale put their shelter in a nice place on Sunrise, but right around the corner is a drug hole. Warehouse districts. They don't put them in communities, and they should be right smack in the middle of the community. We were smack in the community at first. That's what the zoning said we needed to be. Then we moved because the city wanted us to move. And then where we went was legal, and then they came after us that it wasn't legal. But they told us we can go there. But, it's just bullshit. People make complaints. Crime was up. They blamed it on us. The police chief said, no, it wasn't. Our people got arrested for, open containers, peeing in public or whatever. The people doing the violent crime were the people who the rich people were renting to. So, yeah.
So do you think having more transient housing or more like halfway houses or sober living homes would help more?
Well, that's one other problem too now. Florida, they don't want sober homes in the communities. Delray's been sued, God only knows how many times. Now some of the cities are making them evict somebody. So if you're trying to run a sober home, it's hard to wait 2 months to get them out. So it's a very hard business to be in. Yeah, maybe small units I think are better. I like the idea that They can get their own place. And again, it is cheaper for everybody, but you got to have follow up. If you don't have follow up, all you're doing is putting them in a place, wait until they die. They'll eventually die over or in bad health or something like that, which is horrible. So whatever you do has to be based on what's good for everybody and morality. If you're going to put them in a house their own or an apartment, then you have to be moral about it and make sure they get better. Even though you can let them stay there if they're still drinking, but you try to get them better.
So treat the cause and not the problem.
Correct.
Treat why instead of treat the person now. Treat the reason why he became it, or homeless or an addict, instead of the actual addiction or the homelessness.
Yeah, homelessness can be fixed when the problems are fixed.
Right. I think that goes with addiction too. So.
Oh yeah, of course. But I tell you, for people who are trying again to get sober, you can't give up. Pick up the phone, look for NANA. That's the first step. If you don't have finances or way to get help, they'll direct you to where you need to go. Someone will be a friend of you. I mean, those programs are pretty neat when it comes to that.
Celebrate Recovery is the same way. I mean, yes, it's a 12-step based program, but it's more God into it. And with that, I've watched my community of Celebrate Recovery give so much. And if somebody's on the street and they come into the Celebrate Recovery, even if it's just for a meal, they've never been turned away. They've never been shut down. They've never been judged. They've always been offered help. And like, what can we do to help you? And I think needs to be more attitude of what can we do to help you, instead of, you need help. No, be more proactive than reactive to that situations.
Florida does offer what they call homeless outreach with the cops. A lot of cities have that program now. Believe me, it wasn't done because the mayors wanted to be nice. It was a dog and pony show for a long time. But there are some cops out there that really do care. And if you get the right cop, you can call if you're in crisis, you can actually call the police department and say, hey, I'm in crisis right now. Can you send a cop? I need help. Most cops will try to get you resources. That's the name of the game now.
I know in Colorado, right before I left, they had the crisis response team. So mental health or addiction crisis type thing. If you're struggling, you're calling. Not a lot of people used it because everyone thought they were going to go to jail still. They're still in the early phases of it, but it does work. I've seen it work there in Colorado. And I know they have it here in Florida. And it just has to be the less stigma around being able to call the cops for help, which is what they're supposed to do, protect and serve. I think, and there's good ones and there's bad ones everywhere. Anywhere you go in life, there's going to be good and bad.
Absolutely.
Once the good starts outweighing the bad, and I think it already does. There's just there's just a perception that it doesn't. But once the good starts outweighing the bad visibly, then, start celebrating the small wins of somebody, start celebrating the good moments instead of, oh, this happened over here and this officer's under investigation. How about praising the good and getting rid of not centralizing on the bad? I think once the perception shift of the population will shift towards more support. And I'm like, oh, not all cops are bad. And I'll be honest, I met some bad ones and I've dealt with a lot of good ones. And one of the best get down to the causes and conditions. Absolutely right. Thank you for saying that, Tiffany, down in the chats. And like I said, I've met some good ones and I met some bad ones. In fact, one of the best ones I met was after I found my wife. Had to go to the hospital because she was a organ donor. So they did the honor walk with it. And I'm trying to get to the hospital to do the honor walk. And I'm riding dirty. I mean, I got a Cadillac that's on 4 flats and, no registration, no insurance on this car. I've got the title and the bill of sale and the title's in my name. And I pull in gas station, try to get some gas. And I notice my tires getting low. I go to air up the tire so I don't, nothing happens. And What do you know? The freaking machine's jammed. Didn't know this, but as I'm in the store, I seen one of the cops. He knows me. He knows what just happened, and I broke down. I'm like, you know who I am? He's like, how you doing, Jason? Because I was dressed by first. They knew my first name and last name, but he's like, how you doing, Jason? I'm like, I'm just trying to get to my wife in the hospital, and at the time, I'm going through it, and I would tell him I don't have a license. My car's flat, my tire's flat. He's like, what do you need? You need a flat? You need a tire fixed? He was ready to help get a tire fixed, knowing that I don't have a license, knowing I don't have insurance, knowing that the car's not registered. I think the car was registered, but I don't have insurance or a license at the time. And he's like, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? He's like, don't break any laws and let me go and drive. And he's like, what do you need? What can I do? I'm just trying to get to the hospital. He's don't break any laws. That right there, don't break any laws.
Cops can be good like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to just get the right cops and their families struggle with addiction too. And now that they see that addiction's out there, they're it's funny about labels. So I had this brain surgery 2 months ago, right? And I can't blow my nose because it'll throw out my brain was coming through my ear, right? So I went to rehab today for my vestibular therapy. And he goes, we don't allow people to use substances here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, well, you're sniffing. You're using cocaine. I said, what are you, nuts? I said, look, there's records here. It says, do not blow nose for a certain amount of time. And I'm like, boy, do you label people like this just because you think?
Right.
And you could have handled, first of all, she could have handled it another way if she thought so. She's a medical provider, It was funny. I'm like, I said, this is why addicts stay dirty. They don't get clean because of the healthcare.
And I think not only that, I think people see an addict as lower class citizen when, right now, I know alcoholics that are clean and sober that get shunned more now for not drinking than for drinking. They get looked at like, what's your deal? Why aren't you drinking a beer? Why aren't you drinking a wine? Why aren't you doing this or that? Is there something wrong with you because you're not doing it? Because they decided to get help because they had a problem. I see all the time people, you must be an addict if you don't have a drink. Something must be wrong with you if you don't want this substance, and I think it's wrong on more than one level. Personally, as an addict, a recovering addict, I think it's wrong to judge anybody by just a book, by the cover, when you don't know that person.
I was going to have a knee replacement. So I said to myself, geez, I'm on, a lot of Percocet for the pain for years. I said, I want to get off the Percocet before I go in. So I don't have to take a lot of Dilaudid, right? Because I know Dilaudid is kind of hard to get off of. So I said, well, geez, let me just go to the detox for a couple of days, get on 5 milligrams of methadone 3 times a day. That should cover whatever I'm on. And so I went there. I checked myself out in 8 hours. I'm like, this is why people they can't get clean. You guys are so rude. You're judging me and thinking I'm a lowlife when you have no clue who I am. And this is ridiculous. So I went home and did it myself for a couple of days. So, and then I would be off the narcotics for about 6 months before I had the knee replacement. But they treated me so bad. And I checked myself in because I wanted to get off the doses. So the pain medication would work in the hospital because they're very painful on knee replacements. And I was shocked, utterly shocked how rude they were. And I'm like, why are you a nurse? What the hell?
Try to go to the doctor as a drug addict and get the right care because you're in a file. You're in a central file.
Pain pills. You're not going to get enough care.
You're in a central file, so everybody else knows your problem too. And it's once you become an addict, once you get help for being an addict, and they put it in your files that this person's medication seeking, or this person is an addict, pain pill addict, or pain addict, heroin addict, whatever, the downers. So don't give them this stuff. All you can do is Tylenol, or Motrin.
Isn't it
And
how they got so many people addicted to pills,
yeah,
and then they just treat them like shit now?
yeah,
I mean, that's really sad. And
it
you
really
have to
is.
tell them that. I have to tell hospitals that all the time in emergency rooms. Hey, don't assume people are coming here to get high, to get paid.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you got to sign when you walk in. We do not issue narcotic prescriptions here.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
So in Colorado, I know in Colorado, if you're on the MAP program and you miss a day, in certain places, the hospital can, like, let's say, so the MAP program is not methadone, so clinical methadone, that they will give you their dose because they're also in a central record system saying, hey, this person's trying to stay, off the street drugs. Give them, they're an addicts, they're seeking help. This is the best way. And I think it's a really shitty way, but it still works. It does work. So I'm not bashing it. But don't let them go to the street to get their drugs. We will help you get them and then get off of them too. As long as you're not using one for substitute and one for another, and as long as you're doing the programs the right way, then I think they do help.
Yeah, most hospitals will administer 40 milligrams of methadone as a bare minimum to get the person by.
Right.
Our jail,
but once you're on that program after 5 years, if you're still on that program, there's just something mentally wrong. And I think that you need to start weaning yourself off or ask to be weaned off because now it's becoming an addiction again.
Not now because they have most clinics accept Medicaid. So that provider's not going to do they say,
I know.
Detox 3 milligrams a week. Bullshit. We've gotten people clean from 200 milligrams of methadone to 20 milligrams 3 times a day for a week and then moved them down with our own doctors.
Absolutely. I've seen it. I've seen some of the strongest people I know come off Suboxone, and the withdrawals from Suboxone are 10 times worse than the substance they were addicted to. And so I've watched it firsthand, and they cold turkey that stuff because a program's going to tell them, oh, you're going to be on this for the next 6 years. Like hell I am. I quit now.
For somebody out there that takes like opiates, there is medication out there now for opioid addiction.
There is
Suboxone,
Vivitrol. There's Vivitrol. There's Suboxone, whatever, the lean one. Yeah, there's so many others that one shot a month and you're good. But that goes with the Sinclair method. But it also helps that if you're working a program, that you have somebody to talk to, that you got community, that you've got connections, that you don't isolate yourself in a negative way. And because when that happens, you're in your head and then you start thinking worse about yourself. Then you're just spiraling out of control. And then next thing you know, you're manic. Next thing you know, you're calling your plug. Next thing you know, you're back in the same shithole that you were trying to get out of.
Addicts, they know when they're going to relapse. And that's when you need to put up your defense system and play those tapes over and over in your head saying, hey, this is what happened the last time. I'm going to go to meetings. Before you relapse. And the people around you may know before you're going to relapse. Know you're on the verge. So when you see somebody like that and they're trying to stay clean, hey, take them to a meeting. Say, let's go to a meeting, whatever. When you're going to relapse. So you got to put your defense system in place and just keep on playing that shit over and over in your head. What happened the last time? What happened? This is what happened. No, I'm not going to do it. So,
absolutely. Well, if there's one thing that you could get anybody that's listening to take away from this conversation, what would that one thing be?
I'm a believer in God and Jesus. If you cannot do with Jesus, then you find a secular program that you can do it in. And there may be a time, even if you don't believe in Jesus, get on your knees and ask the world, the earth, and ask for help. Go to a hospital if you can't get help. Tell them, be upfront. Hey, I need your help. Whatever you can do to get help, get help. You don't give up. You do not fucking give up. I never thought my boy would make it past 21. And he did. Clean now, 23 years. And it was amazing. the man he became.
That's awesome.
You know, he always had it to be a good person. You could tell the way he was brought up and his own morals, and you knew I saw goodness in him. And yeah, the happiest part of my life was him staying the way he is now.
You know, and I think most parents will agree with you on that one. I know my mom does. So most parents of addicts that they've still got their kids around, their sons or daughters around, and watch them turn their lives around. That's probably some of the most proud moments that you'll ever have.
Yeah, that is. I have to tell him all the time. I send him a message or a video. I'm like, I'll send him. I said, look at your kids. Look what you made. You made these kids. I'm like, you're unbelievable. And him and his wife are awesome parents. And they gave me a gift, you know, and they gave me those kids, and I just love them to death, the grandkids.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and for those, I guess if you don't have families, there are people out there that will become your family. You just have to find them. Find a good friend. You know, not on the street, not another addict unless an addict's been clean.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with you and a buddy who's an addict going in, hold hands, put your arms around each other, and go right into a meeting. Whatever you need to do. I say meeting a lot because I know that's a rescue. That's like the 911 that's out there. Even though I don't always agree with everything they do, but hey, it works. My son used
it. Does work.
He goes to meetings. So, you know, people maybe need meetings until the day they die. Once an addict, always addict, but staying clean is what you can do.
Right. Well, Sean, I appreciate your time taken out of your day to come on here and talk about this. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate you as a father of an addict and just being there for your son. I think that is commendable.
I think what you're doing is great. Continue to do this because you have no clue how many people you're helping, because people will listen to you. And it's like when we answer the mass shooting line, if we have one person a year not do a shooting, our job is done.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'll let you get back to doing answering those phone calls.
Okay. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you. Thank you. And that's Rockin' Recovery. Keep rocking recovery. Remember, there is always hope. Hold on. The pain will end. Call somebody. Reach out. Don't isolate in a negative way. People are there for you. All you got to do is take the first step. Thanks. See you guys next time.